Namaste, welcome to Yourself Yoga for Menopause. I'm Julie, and today I have a very, very special guest. I'm going to introduce her. She is a certified menopause yoga teacher. She's an Instagram expert on menopause, midlife, and women's health. She has a knowledge and passion for menopause that is second to none. She is actually from New York, although she lives in the UK in central London. We actually have something in common because not only do we hold the same certification for menopause yoga, we did it at the same time. How amazing. Welcome, Libby Stevenson. How are you?
Fine, thank you. And thank you for having me in that wonderful introduction.
Oh, you're most welcome. You're most welcome. Did I cover everything?
Yes. Yes, I'm certified to teach menopause yoga.
Yeah.
I'm also certified because when I went through my yoga teacher training, I went through it. I started doing yoga in my early 50s, first of all. Right. And then I started noticing the benefits, the physical, the emotional benefits, and I wanted to learn more. So I did the yoga teacher training in my late 50s. And initially I wasn't going to teach. I just wanted to know, why was I feeling so well? But I didn't get that from my teacher training, by the way. I had to do that research on my own. But the thing is that I became a yoga teacher in my late 50s, and I was not the stereotypical yoga teacher. I was older. I wasn't particularly bendy, and I wasn't a stick insect. And the teacher training took so long that I thought I should do something with it. So I got certified in pregnancy yoga and postnatal yoga because I thought, well, I'll fit in there because I'm a mother and I'm older, and I can help those groups of women. So I did further certification and started teaching pregnancy and postnatal. And then when lockdown happened, I did further certification with you in yoga for menopause. And
that's quite interesting. So you've covered all the different hormonal phases, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, and it's it's interesting because you think, there are 3 different stages of life. But actually, they're very similar in terms of the physical changes that a woman goes through. Yeah. And the one thing all 3 groups complain about, sleep. No one is sleeping. Not in pregnancy, not with a new baby, and not in menopause. So it's the one common complaint of all women.
Yeah, that's very, very true. The other hormonal stage is puberty. And I guess in puberty, that's when we do sleep. We can't stay awake, can we? So we had our sleep then and we didn't realize. Libby, so today we're going to talk about HRT versus menopause yoga. But before we start, right, isn't this weird that we're even talking about this? Because only a few years ago when we did our training, it just wasn't heard of. And I know we still have miles to go, right? But isn't it amazing that it's in the same headline? Super, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. And, like I said, I started doing yoga in my 50s, early 50s. I didn't know back then I was going through the perimenopause because nobody talked about it.
Exactly.
So it's interesting that I started doing yoga at a time of life when my body was going through a change. And it's only now on reflection that I look back and I think, that's why I had such mild symptoms. It's interesting.
Yeah. So sadly, I started yoga very first time stepping on a mat. I was 53. Right. And I'd gone through my worst symptoms. I had a lot still going on, but I saw the difference immediately. It was incredible. And it was like, I have to teach this. I have to become a teacher. It's what propelled me to become a teacher. So we're the poster girls for menopause. Okay, so let's start first of all. I know the International Menopause Society published some results recently on the effects of practicing yoga on menopause symptoms. Can you shed some light on their key findings? Because sometimes it's no good whatever you say, I say, but when come on, International Menopause Society, when they say, we need to know.
So it was a very small study. They only had 60 64 women, I think, or 62 women, very small study. And the women were between the ages of 40 and 60. And they had half of the women do nothing. They were the control group. And the other half did yoga twice a week for an hour each time. And they did it for, I think, 10 weeks. Now, what type of yoga they were doing is not specified. So whether they were doing yin or restorative, we have to assume they were doing some pranayama poses and meditation. But at the end of the 10 weeks, before the study started, they gave all the women, control group and the yoga ladies, they gave them a questionnaire to fill in, where they completed this questionnaire with some symptoms and how they felt the severity of their symptoms were. And they were given a score. And then at the end of the 10 weeks, all the women, all 62, including the control group, did that same little questionnaire and then scored the severity of their symptoms. And the control group had no change, really, whereas the women who did the menopause felt that a lot of their symptoms diminished. Which ones? In particular, the psychological ones, the somatic ones, and the urogenital ones. So the psychological ones are things like sleep, irritability, fatigue, low mood, anxiety. Somatic are all things relating to the body, like hot flushes, heart palpitations, achy joints, headaches, and migraines. And the urogenital symptoms were bladder issues and incontinence. And they felt that all of those improved for them, got better. And so the International Menopause Society published that, which is great.
Yeah, that is super interesting about the urogenital ones, like you wouldn't have associated those.
Well, because in yoga we do a lot of breathing and we keep that posture upright. So I think there's that connection, diaphragm, pelvic floor. And without them realizing, they were toning their pelvic floor and maybe they never had. So of course you're going to feel some benefit.
That's so good. You mentioned before about you didn't realize you were in perimenopause like me, and this new word suddenly appears, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so you were practicing yoga 2 to 3 times a week, right? How did that help your symptoms? When you look back now, you didn't quite make the connection at the time, but when you look back now, how did it help you most?
Well, I think, when we look at yoga, most people just think about movement, but there's a lot more happening. There's breathing, meditation, there's stillness. Sometimes we don't move. There's focus and awareness of where you are, even when you're moving. We move in all different planes of motion, and we're standing, sitting, lying on our backs, lying on our tummy. There's a lot of different things going on in every yoga class. And that's what happens in every yoga class. And I think all of those things combined reset the nervous system. And by resetting the nervous system, that helps with anxiety. It helps with brain fog. It helps with sleep. It helps with digestive problems. And, you're addressing a number of issues at one time. I now, like enough about yoga to say, oh, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'll do a breathing technique because that will calm me down. But at the time, I didn't know that. And I just think going to a yoga class, you're getting all the elements at once. And when you go through the menopause, you're experiencing a number of symptoms all at once. So the entire body is getting engaged when we do yoga. And the entire body is being affected in menopause with symptoms. So there's that synergy, that works beautifully. So at the time, that's why I was I wanted to become a yoga teacher, because I thought, I'll find out why I'm feeling so good. But there's no way your basic yoga teacher training is going to explain all of that to you, because they weren't menopause educated. That wasn't even, it wasn't until several years after that I did my yoga teacher training that menopause yoga was even, a teacher training that one could do.
Yeah.
So they weren't well versed in that, so they couldn't teach me that. Yeah.
So you've managed, like me, to go to manage your own menopause with yoga and other natural solutions. So let's switch to HRT, because I know you know lots about HRT. Can you summarize the benefits, like quickly, just for people
Sure.
watching?
So maybe it's better to backtrack a bit and explain why the menopause happens. So the menopause happens because in our ovaries, we're born with a finite number of eggs. And we use up these eggs through life with each period and with pregnancies. Even if you don't have pregnancies, you're using them up. And it's these eggs that make estrogen. So less eggs means you have less estrogen. So we're using up the eggs, we have less estrogen. And there are estrogen receptors throughout the body. And when these estrogen receptors are not fully replenished, you start experiencing symptoms. So where are these estrogen receptors? They're in your skin, they're in your bones, your muscles, your heart, your gut, they're everywhere. And that's why you experience a number of symptoms because all parts of the body are affected by this decline in estrogen. So if your symptoms are such that a woman thinks, I can't cope with my symptoms, that's where HRT can help them. Because HRT, hormone replacement therapy, in some countries it's called menopause therapy, MT, and in some others it's MHT, menopause hormone therapy. All of those replenish the estrogen in your body, top it back up. So that's what HRT does. And with that in mind, if it's replenishing these estrogen receptors, what is it helping with? It can help with hot flushes. It can help with vaginal dryness. It can bone health, heart health. It'll sleep, joint pain, mood, just to name a few. So if you think about all those symptoms are caused by the decline in estrogen, if you top up your estrogen, a lot of those symptoms will now, I don't want to say disappear because they might not, but they'll be relieved. You know, you might feel less of them.
So I know not every woman can take HRT for medical reasons, but assuming we all could, like, would you only go for HRT if you are kind of in a really bad place with it? Because aren't they now encouraging you to take HRT anyway? Or
there's encouragement for vaginal estrogen. Because all women can take that, even women who've had breast cancer or estrogen driven cancers. That one is, and a lot of women complain about incontinence and issues, dryness, painful sex, and that can really help. As for HRT, I think any woman who is thinking about it and is curious about it should try it. I mean, you don't know how your body will react to it, and see how it is. And it's not a prescription for life. If you decide to change your mind later on under the guidance of your doctor, you can be weaned off it. I am not on HRT because, like I said, my symptoms are very mild. So I didn't feel the need for HRT, but there was a study where I was invited, because I had mild symptoms, to take HRT for 6 months. And I thought, brilliant, now I'll find out. I've heard such wonderful things about HRT. But because my symptoms were mild, there was no difference to me, none whatsoever. So after the 6 months, I stopped. But anyone who's curious or who wakes up in the morning and thinks, I can't cope with my symptoms, or, some women just worry about their health. And if you're noticing all these different symptoms because they're menopause driven, and always check out your symptoms by a doctor and make sure that they're not symptoms of something else. But if you know that they're menopause driven, why not try the HRT? A lot of women worry about their health. It'll give them peace of mind knowing they're taking something that can help them. So although I'm not on HRT, I don't discourage any woman from exploring for herself the effect it can have on her body. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So let's switch to menopause yoga. How would you summarize the benefits of menopause yoga? Because you talked about yoga having this all over body benefit.
Well, again, let's look at the different aspects of yoga. So you have the breathing techniques, which are calming, and that's going to help you with anxiety. When you're calm, you can think better. It can help with brain fog. It can help you sleep. And of course, some breathing techniques in yoga are cooling. There's cooling breaths. So if you have hot flushes or night sweats, it can help with that. Some breathing techniques are energizing, right, in yoga. And that can help you if you have low mood or fatigue. Then you have, right? And then in yoga, you have stillness and balancing poses. And those are really good if we're at that stage of life when there's a lot happening and our minds are busy, because it's not just physical symptoms in menopause. There's the concepts of aging. There's aging parents. There's children leaving. We're being pulled apart in many directions. So the stillness can help you get some mental space, as can the meditation. So meditation, stillness, and balancing poses. I always do a balancing pose when I have a busy day and I need to focus, and I can't. But a balancing pose gets you right there. And then the thing about yoga that is brilliant in menopause, because like I said, it's not just physical symptoms, it's psychological. It's being pulled in different directions. And for a lot of women, menopause is, the concept of aging. For some women, they feel that they're past it or over it. They lose confidence. They lose a sense of self.
Yes.
And I think that's where yoga is different from all forms of exercise. Yoga is not exercise, but it's different from all forms of movement in that because we're moving in all the different planes of motion, up and down, on our backs, on our tummy, the breathing, the stillness. I think because of that, we reset that nervous system, and yoga works at a very deep level.
Yeah.
And it connects you back to you in a way that is deep, that is not that you can get from other forms of movement, and it's lasting. And it's hard to explain in words what happens, but if it's done regularly and consistently, you get back in touch deep down to that person who's being pulled in different directions, and you no longer know who you are and where you're going, but it brings you back to you. And that sounds very fluffy, but it's the only way to explain it.
It does. I call it the shift. And I always say at the end of a class, notice what shifted. It's like something moves and it's unidentifiable, isn't it?
It is.
You could go on a bike ride, you can go for a run, you can go for a swim, and we feel good because we release these endorphins, don't we feel good? But yoga's just somehow different, isn't it? There's like this shift. So
it's a good word for it, the shift. Absolutely. That's because other forms of exercise that you just mentioned, you feel great afterwards, you get those endorphins, but it lasts a couple of hours. Whereas in yoga you feel great, but your perspective changes, so you still have the challenges of life, but you think, okay, I'll get through that.
It's true. You can step on your mat. I remember in my early days when I first found yoga, and I would practice at a studio, and I'd drive there and wound up about work and riddled with anxiety because of menopause, and then coming out after the class just feeling really strange in a good way, but can't explain how you feel. And that's it. It's magic shift, isn't it?
And I always say it's not just about feeling better about yourself, which you do, but you feel better about the world around you. Somehow you're like, okay, I can manage.
Yeah, it makes you a better person, I think.
Yes.
So, menopause yoga is a lifeline for people who can't take HRT, right? But it can also be practiced alongside HRT. And it's a message that I have to be very careful with, because a lot of people think, oh, so I can only come to you if I'm not taking HRT. And it's like, no, large percentage of my ladies take HRT and practice yoga. So you agree it's an amazing complementary approach, isn't it, combining the two?
Absolutely. So I think HRT and yoga go very well together. And I would say, it's an American saying, get more bang for your buck. Why just do one? If you're taking HRT, why not add the yoga to it? And, with HRT, although it has its benefits, you still need to do the whole healthy lifestyle thing. I mean, if you take HRT and eat crappy food and you sit on the sofa all day, HRT can only do so much. You still need to do the other stuff. So you still need to move, and yoga is a great form of movement. But like I said, it's also deeper than that. So if anyone has loss, like I was saying, loss of confidence or anything like that, loss of, you're on this path now and you don't know where you're going, it can help you with that. It can help you find yourself.
Yeah, I have a lot of ladies who say that. I feel like I found me again, like rediscovered themselves, which is lovely. And I was just going to say that HRT as well, it isn't for life. So at some point you have to stop it. So having the menopause yoga, because it's not just the perimenopause, it's for the full transition and post-menopause, and has many benefits in post-menopause, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
So I was going to ask you, and this might be a nice segue into that, do you think menopause yoga can be as effective as HRT in managing symptoms?
I think the word symptom here is the important one. And I think it depends on the symptom. If the symptom is physical, and that physical symptom is due to the decline in estrogen, then HRT is going to help you. If that symptom is psychological, then I think the yoga is going to help you. I don't think HRT can help you with that. So I think it depends on the symptom. Because I also think it's very subjective. Because some women will say, I took HRT, I was low in confidence, but I took my HRT and now my confidence is back. And maybe just because their symptoms are more manageable, they feel more confident in their day-to-day. So I think it's a little bit of everything, depending on the symptom and depending on the person.
Yeah. And also, like assuming if you take HRT and then you have to stop it, just out of curiosity, and I know you don't take HRT, but do those symptoms come back? What happens?
Well, that's a good question. I can tell you when I took the HRT and I stopped, I started experiencing hot flushes, and I never had before taking the HRT because now my estrogen was declining.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting. So I don't know, because I don't know of anyone who's come off it and what their experience is. And by the time they come off it, remember, they're in postmenopause. So their hormones are now stabilized. And maybe even if they do experience symptoms because they're coming off the HRT, maybe it's not to the extent that it was before. So it might be a milder version of those symptoms. It's a good question. And I think this is all new to everyone. It's still
early days.
Early days. It's still a blossoming, if that's the word for it, area.
So what advice would you give to someone who's struggling between the two as a primary method of symptom management?
I would say try the yoga, because it is, a natural remedy. And if that doesn't ease your symptoms, then try the HRT. I would start without it and see how it goes. And then I would try the HRT. But having said that, if someone is waking up in the morning saying, I can't cope, by all means, see your doctor and see, how they can help you. And it might not even be that you need HRT. It might be that your most problems or troublesome symptom is depression. It could be, and you need an antidepressant. Maybe your most troublesome symptom is anxiety, and you can get anti-anxiety medication. And if it is a hot flush that is bothering you the most, and you can't cope with that because you have to go to work and you don't want people to see you sweating, now there's medication called fenzozilantant, something like, starts with an F, and that can help you with hot flushes. So, maybe go to your doctor with your most troublesome symptoms, and maybe they can give you something just for that, instead of the whole HRT. But maybe HRT is what will suit. I mean, it all depends on a person's medical history and what temperament, what can you deal with?
Yeah.
right?
Good advice, though, to maybe try the yoga first to see whether or not
I
it
would
can.
try that. Yeah. And again, you can't just try it once and expect miracles. It's got to be consistent and regular, either once a week or maybe
Yeah.
even twice a week, depending.
Yeah, I think we're the same on that because I encourage my ladies to practice 3 short sequences per week. Yeah.
Perfect.
You
Yeah.
get, as you say, more bang for your buck from 3 short sequences than from 1 hour once a week. You're going to get more,
Exactly.
aren't you?
Yeah.
So we have to talk about this. Why do you think that menopause yoga doesn't get the attention or yoga that HRT does? Is it because it's not widely discussed? Obviously, it's not out in the mainstream. Or is it because people don't believe in it? Are there misconceptions around?
I think there's a number of reasons. One is in our Western society, people want a quick fix.
Yeah.
So, yoga takes its time to have an effect. So HRT actually takes its time too, right? It's not an immediate fix, but people don't know that until they take it. It takes like about a month for it to settle in your body. Anyway, so people are looking for a quick fix and yoga can't give them that. It's something you have to work towards. The other thing is some people like proof that something works. And where's the proof that yoga works? There are some studies coming out now showing that it helps with depression, anxiety. We have this one from the International Menopause Foundation, Society, showing that it can work for menopause. So people want evidence, and until there is that evidence, they think, why should I bother? If there's no proof it works, I'm not doing it. The other one I think is. There's a misconception about yoga in general, that it's for the young, thin, and bendy. And if you're not young, thin, and bendy, then it's not for you, which is, you and I started it in our 50s. So, that's debunked. But the other one that I thought of was a lot of women our age. Now, this is women in their 20s and 30s now are doing yoga. So this probably won't apply to them when they go through the menopause. But women our age who have never done yoga before are thinking, I've lived without it for 50 years. Why should I start now? Right? And that's actually a pretty good question. And that's why you and I are here talking about the benefits of it. Right? But, if you think about, well, I haven't done it and I'm not young, thin, and bendy, why should I start now? So I think there's a number of reasons why it's not popular. But I think, as more studies come out proving that it can be beneficial for health, younger women coming to menopause are just going to continue doing what they're doing and getting the benefits of it. So for all those reasons, I think that's why people are resorting to HRT as opposed to looking into, and it's not just yoga, is it? It's also all kinds of natural remedies, really.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, I agree totally with what you're saying, but wouldn't it be great, right, if a GP or a doctor said, you have 2 choices. You can go down this route or you can go down this route. And yoga was one of them. If only it came from, those sources, it would make such a difference. We have to know.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Mosconi, in her latest book, The XX Brain, she's talking about dementia and Alzheimer's in women. But she has a sentence in her book saying, do yoga. And I've actually highlighted it. So
we need more than a sentence, don't we? We need books, studies. Libby, is there anything else you'd like to add about finding the right approach to managing menopause symptoms? It could be menopause yoga, it could be HRT.
Yeah. Well, I would say actually all these symptoms that we experience in menopause are an opportunity for women to really start exploring their health and to focus beyond the menopause, because what you do today will either help or hinder your future health. And I think by looking at what are the symptoms that I'm experiencing, how can I live my healthiest life? will help you with your menopause symptoms, but will also help you for the future. So I would say lean into them, lean into what you're feeling, and use it as an opportunity to live a healthier life and go and have a healthier aging process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So to not just think menopause, but to think beyond that.
Yeah.
And menopause is that entryway to the rest of our life.
It is. It's what you do now matters, doesn't it? So just to tie it all up with a nice bow, so it was HRT versus menopause yoga. Which do you think works best? How would you answer that?
I would say the thing that works best is what each woman chooses for herself. That's what I would say. So what works for me is doing a lot of yoga and no HRT, but every woman's journey is different and unique. And perhaps for some it's, the HRT route, and for others it's the HRT and yoga route. So, every woman has to choose for herself, but be informed, make an informed choice and then own it.
I love it. Thank you so much, Libby. Ladies, if you have any questions for myself or for Libby, drop us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. And you'll find Libby's contact details in the description beneath the video. And you can follow her on Instagram. She has an amazing Instagram. Thank you so much, Libby. We could talk lots and lots about this. Hopefully we'll see you again soon. But thank you. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.
Okay, see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.